Welcome to your science lesson for this week on rocks. Let's have a look at your do now task. I would like you to read the table and then answer the questions very carefully. Daniel made this table to show where he found different animals. So as you can see, there's a table showing the different animals he found in a flower bed and the animals he found in a pond. So in a flower bed, Daniel found 5 caterpillars, 3 beetles and 2 worms. In a pond, he found 1 frog, 3 water boatmen and 4 leeches. So let's have a look at the 3 questions. Where did Daniel find the beetles? Now let's have a look. Look for the word beetles and see where he found it, in a flower bed or in a pond. I would like you to maybe leave a text box for your teacher, or if you would like to, you can write it down on a piece of paper. Can you answer in full sentences? Daniel found the beetles in the flower bed or in the pond. How many leeches were found in the pond? I would like you to have a look for leeches and see how many leeches were found in the pond. And finally, question 3. How many animals live in the flower bed? So have a look at how many animals live there. You might need to do something with these numbers. Now let's have a look at your recall task for today. You will need to read these questions very carefully and then write your answer below. Again, you can complete a text box and add it to this page, or if you would like to, you can write it on a piece of paper and upload it to show before your teacher. Number 1. I'm waterproof and used for house roofing. Who am I? So think about all of the rocks that we have had a look at over the last couple of weeks. You've been watching all the videos of the teachers from school, doing the investigations. Which rocks have you been looking at? So we've looked at slate, granite, limestone, sandstone, chalk. We've looked at various rocks. Now, maybe one of those rocks you've been looking for could be the answer. So I'm waterproof and used for house roofing. Who am I? And you can just leave an answer below. I'm very expensive to buy and shiny. Who am I? So remember, this rock is very expensive, but it is very shiny as well. Number 3. I'm very strong and hard. So think about it. It's a very strong and hard rock, but this rock is only used for pavements. Who am I? And finally, number 4, I'm soft and crumble very easily when dragged along hard surfaces. Who am I? So think about one of the softest rocks that we have been looking at. This is your knowledge organizer. Particularly, I would like you to pay attention to this part where it says fossil formation, and in your sticky knowledge as well. So the fossil formation and sticky knowledge. So let's have a look. Fossil formation here, look at the diagram, and then sticky knowledge. And particularly, I would like you to look at these 2 statements. Fossils are formed when a living organism dies and it is covered with layers of rock. And also, fossils are found in sedimentary rock. So these 2 statements and this diagram here is very important for today's lesson. Your learning objective for today is to understand how fossils are made. So remember, referring back to your sticky knowledge and this diagram on fossil formation. So to understand how fossils are formed, and you will be watching a video and creating a flowchart. Now, we have a question for you. How are fossils made? So maybe looking at the sticky knowledge, or maybe your own knowledge you have, your previous knowledge you have on rocks and fossils, I would like you to leave your teacher a voice note. How do you think fossils are made? And I would like you to start your sentence by saying, I think fossils are formed when. And you can have a look at these pictures as well. Maybe they can give you a clue, or you can go back to your knowledge organizer. So please leave your teacher a voice note. I think fossils are formed when. Now we will be watching a video, and this video will tell you what a fossil is and how fossils are formed. Now I would like you to make some notes as I play the video. So what I will do is I will stop the video and I'll give you some time to make some notes. and I would highlight any key information that you would need to know. So I'm going to pause the video for you to make some notes, start the video again, and then take some notes. So let's watch the video.
Fossils are the stone remains of animals or plants that were once alive. Fossils can be the bones of a dead dinosaur or his big footprints in the sand. Usually, only the skeletons of animals are left after millions of years. But sometimes a whole animal, like a woolly mammoth, gets trapped in the ice. The ice stays frozen for thousands of years, and paleontologists are lucky to find a whole creature that has barely changed over time. Or an insect gets stuck in tree sap. The sap hardens into a hard, clear material called amber. These creatures look just the way they did when they first wandered into the sap millions of years ago. Let's look at the way dinosaur bone fossils.
So get ready, have your paper ready and your pencil ready to make some notes.
Are made. Most dinosaur fossils are formed by mold and cast. Imagine a stegosaurus drowns in a river and its body sinks to the bottom of the riverbed.
So first of all, the dinosaur dies, and then the dinosaur goes to the bottom of the seabed.
The flesh of the animal rots away or is eaten by smaller creatures.
So as you can see in the video, sea creatures come along and eat the soft parts of the dinosaur, or even the soft parts start to rot away. Then you are only left with the bones.
Eventually only the bones are left. Mud and sand called
So only the bones are left. So if you look at this scene now in the video, you can see that only the bones, only the skeleton is left of the dinosaur.
sediment cover the skeleton over many years.
So then over many years, sediments cover the skeleton. So whatever's left of the dinosaur, which is the skeleton, sediments start to cover the skeleton.
More layers of sediment fall on the skeleton. Over time,
as you can see more layers are building up on top of the skeleton.
The floor of the river sinks from the weight of the sediment. The lower layers of soft mud and sand are pressed into hard rock.
So as you can see, layers build up on top of the bones, and pressure forces the layers together.
Now the skeleton is completely surrounded by compressed stone. The bone is slowly washed away by little trickles of water. This water is called groundwater.
So over time, the bones slowly get washed away, and it gets washed away by groundwater.
The bones leave an open space in the exact shape of the dinosaur skeleton. This open space is called a natural mold. Now the groundwater brings tiny pieces of rock into those empty spaces. After millions,
as you can see, a mold of the dinosaur's body is left behind. So you can see the black outline that has been left behind, and then that starts to fill up with rock. So the natural mold of the dinosaur starts to fill with rock. So you can see in the picture, it's starting to fill up with small little pieces of rocks.
Years, these tiny rock pieces fill the mold.
So it takes over millions of years for these tiny pieces to start filling up the mold. So as you can see in this clip, now the mold is started to fill up.
The rock is pressed further and further underground.
As you can see now, the rock is starting to press further underground. It's being compressed.
Over time, the entire skeleton mold becomes solid rock.
That's a very important thing to bear in mind. Now, over time, it has become solid rock.
Many years later, the rock surrounding the skeleton rises to the Earth's surface.
So as you can see now, after many years, it rises to the ground, the surface, okay? It rises to the ground.
This can happen during an earthquake or as mountains rise naturally. The top layers of rock are worn away by wind and rain.
So as you can see in the corner, you've got clouds and rain. It is raining. So we call this now weathering. So when it's risen to the ground, weathering wears the rock away. So you can see it's starting to rain now, and the rock will slowly wear away with the rain.
Slowly, wind and rain show the fossils to the outside world.
And as you can see now, slowly the fossil is appearing, and people in the outside world will be able to see the fossil because it's risen to the surface.
Not all fossils rise to the surface. Many times they remain under layers and layers of rock, and paleontologists have to dig a long time to find them.
So as you can see now, the paleontologists have come along, and finally the stone cast comes to the surface and the paleontologists dig them up. So if you need to watch this video again, year 3, you can watch it again. Okay, so your teacher's going to give you a little bit of time to act out how a fossil is made. I would like you to use your notes. If you need to watch the video again, you can go off and watch the video again, but use your notes and use the video to act out how a fossil is made. Which stage came first? So have a look at the pictures. Which stage came first? Now these pictures look like the bone, skeleton. The skeleton. This one shows a dinosaur's flesh. So I think maybe this one came first. Then think about what happened next. The sea creatures start to eat the flesh and the soft parts start to rot away. And then what happens to the skeleton, to the bones? What happens? Then what happened? Now I'm looking at this picture. This to me is the last stage of how a fossil is made. So let's think about, as you see these two pictures, you can see that the fossil is rising to the surface. So I don't think these two came next. These will be before the paleontologist comes along. So maybe this one was next. And then it needs to rise to the surface, and then weathering takes place, and then the paleontologists come along and dig up the fossil. So I'd like you to have a think about those pictures. Remember, if you get stuck, do go back and watch the video again. Now your task for today is to explain how a fossil is formed, and you will be using this flow chart right here. Okay, so you can see the pictures have already been put in place for you, and you've already got some information, some sentences here and here and here and here. The only thing you need to do for your task today is to complete these missing spaces. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I would like you to use your notes, and if you need to watch the video again to complete this sheet. So remember, what happens first? First, what happens to the dinosaur? It needs to die first. So first the dinosaur dies. Then we are aware that the soft parts rot away. Then what happens next? Only the bones, the skeleton is left. Then pressure forces sediment layers together. The remains slowly get washed away by the groundwater. Then what happens? Look at the picture very carefully. Now here is there's a mold has been left. What happens to the mold? Okay, what happens to it? What starts filling the mold? Okay, then the mold fills with rock after a number of years. And then what happens after? What has happened to the skeleton? It has risen to the surface, but when it rises to the surface, okay, through maybe a volcano erupting, what happens when it rises? Something happens to the weather or the wind, okay, which makes the rock wear away. So remember, use your notes and maybe watch the video again to complete this task. All the best, year 3, and if you need any help or support, please ask your teacher.